Okay, let's start this. And okay, by the way, before we start, uh, who was that person? Just checking. Sorry, I just forgot the name. Ariansh Singh. Is he here? No, Ariansh is not here. Anyway, uh, please try to put your view and come to a consensus. Just follow the thread we're discussing in our WhatsApp group regarding the target lecture. Okay, there should not be any clash. Like someone already having a lecture, there should not be any clash. So if it is Saturday, I do not have any problem. So try to come to a consensus and have a 1 hour lecture. So I just request all of you to follow the thread and sincerely try to figure out one stuff. That's all. So let's start. Now, as we have seen so far, that uh, the majority voting equilibrium basically tends to the median voting, and we tend to oversupply. Right? So it is not Pareto efficient. So far we have done. Now think about an elected representative, an MLA or MP. Now, when he, after getting elected, what we know that he is voting for a particular level of government expenditure should reflect the views of his constituents. Right? That we have seen. But as an individual, he is also a member of that constituency. And hence, when he votes for an added expenditure as an elected representative, he himself bears only a marginal fraction of the cost of that added expenditure and receives a negligible fraction of it. Then how should that person, what will be his views, his objective? First of all, any politician, any elected representative would like to stay in that office. To do so, that person needs to maximize the vote that he or she gets. The, the position that he chooses is again contingent upon the position chosen by the rivals. Right? So it's a strategic behavior. So a little bit of strategic interaction you have to do. So we start with the simplest of format. Two parties, Republican and Democrat. Now, assuming that the Democrat Party's position is given, the Republican will take a position. Let's assume government expenditure, which is being vetoed by the Republican, is GR, and that by the Democrats is G. Now, now you can understand intuitively that, in fact, I didn't want to use it, but uh, most of you must understand this is nothing but a Kurno sort of application. A Kurno game where two farms choose their output, and the Nash equilibrium lies where the reaction function sits. Right? Exactly similar, but in a different mode. And that mode is what we call a linear mode. Suppose you think about a straight line, the straight line that you can see. The two extremes you can think of say 0 and 1. And you can think this straight line consists of infinite points, which is a continuum between 0 and 1. Okay, because you can normalize everything in a 0 to 1 scale. So whether it's zero expenditure to $1 million, even then, the moment you divide everything by 1 million, you can convert it to a 0 to 1 continuum. Right? So we're doing that only. It's a simple unitary normalization. Because after normalization, I'm thinking of a particular straight line whose extreme ends are 0. It can be anything. The extreme ends can be any value. But it's very easy to work with 0. Now, depending on what is the value of GD, there will be a best response here. How? Because that we'll see very shortly. In fact, let's do that. Take for example, as you can see, GD is a particular value or a position taken by the Democrat. And GM is that of the median voter. Now the question is, given a value of GD which is greater than GM, what would be the best option or the best response of the Republican? Then he should choose a position which lies in between GM and GR. Why? Look, he takes a position which is closer to the median voter. So he will get not only everyone. What is the median? 50% of the voters are on the left side and another half on the right side. Correct? So 50% of the voters lies between 0 and GM. So he gets them. Not only that, he gets everyone who lies between GM and GR. Not only that, he also gets in the all the 50 who lies between GR and GD divided by 2. So let's think of a mid average point between GR and GD. We will get, and let's call that A. A lies exactly at the middle of GR and GD. Everyone from GR to A as well. Correct. Now, what is majority vote? What is the objective function of this particular political candidate, the Republican candidate, or per se the Democrat? The idea is very simple. I need to get more than 50% vote. The moment I get 50.1, I have a majority vote and I will win. Now look, and that is why this statement. For each value of GD, there will be an optimal. Optimal in the sense, vote maximizing position for the Republican. Now, after, what about the Democrat now? The Democrat will know that the moment he chooses a position, GD, the Republican will take a position GR and he win the majority vote. Then immediately looking at the position of GR, what will the Democrat position? GD prime, which is lying exactly in between GM and GR, midpoint of. Then what will happen? The moment the Democrat chooses GD prime and the Republican chooses GR, by the same backward induction logic, you can see the Democrat will have the majority winning votes. Now, given GD prime, the Republicans would always try to relocate at GR prime. Now, as you can see, this will continue till both of them converge to the GM position. So if there is two parties, both the parties know what the reaction of the opponent will be given any position that I take on this 0 to 1 continuum. Yes. I'm getting a feedback. Anyone trying to say something or any observation here?
So just one question.
Sure.
So let's say we have a voter just slightly to the right of GR. So
Yes.
won't that voter go for an expenditure closer to that voter's value? Why will that voter end up voting for GD?
Hmm. Take for example. Take for example, forget about everything. So let me draw. I don't need to draw actually. It's already there. So let's concentrate, Avina, only at a position GR. So I have assumed it's a 0 to 1 continuum. At every point, there is a voter. And what I mean by that voter's location, that will be the preferred government expenditure for that particular voter. So let's assume, for the sake of absolute simplicity, that it is not a continuum but a discrete. So it's suppose that unit is 0.01. Here, and you have a particular voter who is at 0.gr plus 0.01, right? That's exactly what you are saying. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Ah. Now, what would be that particular person's uh, choice between Republican and Democrat, given the locations GR and GT? He will obviously vote for GR because that is the next best alternative to his own position, right? Or let me say that a voter, you can see the cursor. Let's see the cursor is a voter. And there are the two positions taken by the Republican and the Democrat, given by GR and GT. Forget about GM, GR prime, GT prime. Suppose these points are not there. That particular person where the cursor is closest to GR, so will vote for GR. A person here will vote for GD. A person here will also vote for GD. What about a person here? Suppose the cursor right now lies exactly what happened.
Sir, can you use a line to show? Like, I'm not able to follow because there is a little lag in what your cursor is moving and what your thing.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. There are too many background noise, Shachi. Can you please tell me what did you say? I could not follow you. Sorry. Am I audible, Shachi?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ha ha.
So
Now
I
you are
just
audible. Please tell me. Yes.
So can you use a color line? Matlab, you were
Okay,
telling
sure,
me
sure,
with
sure.
a cursor,
Okay,
I was not able to
sure.
follow.
Okay, let's do that. So let's, uh, Shachi, can you see this new line, the red
Yes,
straight line?
sir.
Yeah, fine. So suppose this is GR, okay, and the blue is GD, and let's think this green one as a voter. Forget about median voter and anyone else. So I have one single voter represented by this green line, the position of that voter. The red one stands for the position taken by the Republican, blue one, position taken by the Democrat. Whom will the voter vote right now, given his location,
GR.
right? Now,
GD.
now,
GD.
now,
Still GD.
might not
It,
be, depending.
indifferent.
Suppose he's lying exactly at the uh, medium, what I can say, let's at the midpoint between GR and GD. Let's think about this only subsection GR GD, that distance. He lies exactly at the midpoint. Then he becomes indifferent. So, if anyone, if now let's try to reformulate our position. Now let's think there is a GM, which is the median voter. What does that mean? By definition, 50% of the voters are on the left hand side of GM. So between 0 and GM, there are 50% voter. And between GM and the right extremity, 1, there are another 50% voter. Now, if this is the location of GD, what is the best response of the Republican? Take a mid position between GM and GD. By doing that, what he ensures? He not only get everyone from 0 to GM, he also get all the votes between GM and GR, and he also gets everyone who lies between GR and this green line. Obviously, that's more than 50% of the vote, and he wins. Now, the Democrat can see that. The moment he sees that Republican has taken a position GR, the Democrat will immediately do one thing: shift his position here. Why? GD prime lies exactly at the midpoint of GM and GR. He gets everyone from 0 to GD prime, and suppose the green always represents the median between any segment, the the mid value of any segment. Then he also get GD prime to the green line, means the majority vote. Now this process, now the moment the Republican can see that Democrat had chosen a GD prime, he will reshift to GR prime. GR prime lies exactly halfway between GM and GD prime. So he will get every vote from 0 to the green line, again more than 50%. Because both the candidates have only one objective. I want to get to the office or retain my office. And the only way that is possible is getting the majority vote. Now, if that is the case, what will be the equilibrium location for both the parties? Both will choose GM. Now look, both the parties will try to converge to a position GM together. Same position. Now look, whether this voter is here, 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 irrespective of the green line, irrespective of the location, if both the parties converge to GM, so GD equal to GR equal to GM, irrespective of the distance between GM and a particular voter, he will vote for the GM. It does not have an option. So anyone on the right of GM will also vote for GM. Anyone on the left of GM will also vote for GM. Why? That we have already seen last lecture, if you remember, with this example. GM is the median voter. So you pitch 1,000. So government expenditure equal to 1,000 against anything below 1,000. So anything below 1,000 will get 2 votes, Lucius and Tom's. But everyone who wants to vote, who has a preference of higher government expenditure, will vote for 1,000 because 1,000 is greater than anything less than 1,000. So 3 will get 1,000, majority vote. Pitch 1,000 against anything more than 1,000. Anything more than 1,000 will get John and Jill. But median will get 3 votes. Same, exactly the same way we know that if there are 2 parties, we have just a 2-party system and majority voting. Both will stand for the same position and that of the median voter. Why it's an equilibrium? No one has an incentive to move away. If the Democrat moves away from GM, he knows he has given the seat to the Republican because the majority vote will go to the median voter. And the Republican has stuck to the median voter position. So median voter will win. So the Republican will win. So the Democrat does not have an incentive to move anywhere from this median voter position. And same goes for the Republican. And that is the major reason. In fact, it will see that both the parties takes a centrist position. No one is absolutely left. Take for the example India. Take any state, any constituency, the center. Almost everyone takes a centrist position. No one is hard right, no one is hard left. Now, there are limitations. The limitation of this particular voting system are 2. One we already know. that the majority voting might not exist at all, the equilibrium. It will exist if all individuals have single peak preference. So if I just consider one dimension and all individuals have single peak preference, then majority voting equilibrium will exist. Otherwise, it might not exist. The moment I add more dimensions to it, you can have a cyclicity problem. So the moment I bring in two types of expenditures, one for education, another for national defense, you can have a cyclicity. The most important is the concept of participation in the political process itself. Now let's get back to this simple diagram and let's rationalize it out. From now, what I can understand, the moment I can identify the median voter position in a two-party system, both the parties will converge to the median voter position. The parties, the candidates know. Who said? The voters does not know. The voters also know. So what is the incentive of the people who are in and around? Suppose I take the neighborhood in the strict sense of set theory or real analysis. Let's take the red is the median voter position and the blue and the green defines the neighborhood of GM. Right? All these people know where both the parties will try to give an outcome which is befitting to their own position. So let's think about that single person, the median voter himself. He knows whether I vote or not, both GR and GT will be located with GM. So why should I vote? Even I do not have an incentive to vote because I know whether I vote or not, I will get what I want. Both the parties will give me what I want. So it is that neighborhood of GM, that median, those set of people does not have any incentive to vote. Even if voting is costless. We know voting is not costless. You have to go, we have to cast a vote, you spend some time. There is, even though marginal, there is a cost. So who will be willing to vote more? Who will try to get involved in the voting process itself? Those who are away, those who are near the extremes. And that is why you see, it is the people with the extreme positions, they get involved in the voting mechanism more than the people who already are in a centrist position. It's a very simple, rational, strategic interaction. It is nothing beyond that. Why should a government request voters to vote, that one should cast a vote? It is not only your right, it is also your duty. Because all the political parties know, all the candidates know that if these people do not cast a vote, the outcome can be erratic. These people will always vote. They lie in the extreme. They will participate more in the voting mechanism. But these people, they do not have an incentive. They know they will get, irrespective of whether they will vote or not. Now, so the summary is the proposal that gets a majority is the winner. That's the definition of majority voting. If majority voting equilibrium exists, it reflects the preference of the median voter. In a two-party system, both parties will converge. And we have already seen in a majority voting equilibrium, there is a tendency of oversupply of public provisions or over provision of public goods. So it's not Pareto efficient. However, on the flip side, majority voting equilibrium might not exist. It can be cyclical. And even if I'm looking at one dimension, but the voters do not have single peak preferences, suppose one of them have double peak preferences, the cyclicity might come. So majority voting equilibrium will exist if I'm talking about one dimension and all the people have single peak preference. And we have seen in our last but one lecture just before the examination week, there was impossibility theorem that there does not exist any voting mechanism that can solve for the problems of majority voting and satisfy all the 5 criteria. Right. So far, this is the summary of majority. So the question is, I do not have an ideal mechanism. I know there might not exist an equilibrium. If it exists, it might not be Pareto efficient. Voters may behave strategically, so true preferences are not revealed. Remember, strategic voting. I know there is no ideal mechanism, but is there an alternative? There is one alternative called the Lindell solution or the Lindell equilibrium. The Lindell equilibrium starts with a focus on efficiency itself. And as you will see, it relies entirely on the first and particularly the first welfare theorem. What is the first fundamental theorem of welfare economics? That from an allocation economy, if you're just thinking of an exchange economy or with production or whatever, the first welfare theorem says if all the markets are perfectly competitive, the outcome will be Pareto optimal. So basically, you have to start from the tail of the story, not from the head of the story. We started with position, applied majority voting, and saw that there might be an equilibrium. But the equilibrium, if it exists, might not be efficient. So you start from the tail of the story. Let's start from efficiency. Let's see whether it can achieve an equilibrium. What it does very simple. Forget about all the positions, what is your requirement or not. Suppose I ask you that you have to pay a tax price P1. What will be your optimal amount of public good? You ask the individual. I charge you this much of tax. Where this tax price comes from, that we'll see later. But suppose I start that individual one, I will, you have to give a tax price P1. Tell me what will be your optimal G? What will be your optimal G star? And then I go to individual 2 and say, individual 2, you have to pay a tax price P2. What is your optimal G? So suppose the government does not know the position of the demand curve of this individual one for the public good. What is the demand curve? If you remember, we have already said it's a marginal benefit curve. And suppose this particular individual has a marginal demand, a willingness to pay curve or a marginal benefit curve or a demand curve, like this purple line. And once you say that you have to give P1, he can say, okay, if you are charging me P1, then I will give you G star. The government does not know where this purple line. The government has just only said, you have to pay P1, tell me what will be your G. And individual knows. I know my preference. So I can immediately plot this graph and say P1. Okay, then G, this will be the G star for me. Similarly for individual 2. Now what will the government do? It will simply vertically add up. So for the same G star, he gets P1 and P2. P1 from individual 1, P2 from individual 2. Demand curve is the vertical demand or the vertical sum of individual demands, right? Vertical addendum. And he will provide, the government will provide. So Lindell said this is absolutely simple. Why we are, uh, what I can say, jutting our head in that wall for so long. It's as simple as that. The problem is who told that for different P1 and P2, the same G star will come in return. It can be G1 star and G2 star. So who guarantees that for different tax price, I know that different individuals have different willingness to pay. They have different marginal benefits. But at the end of the day, it's a public good. It's only one G star that can be provided, which will be consumed by both individual 1 and 2. But who told me that for the P1 and P2, the two individuals return the same G star? If that is not the case, how can I get a picture like this? So there might not be any unanimous choice. Now the question is,
Sir, I had a
yes,
doubt.
yes, please go ahead.
So don't we get P1 and P2 by asking the consumer itself for G star level of public good, how much would you be willing to pay? So
Exactly, that is the problem with the public good. I know that I'll be happy with G star. But if you ask me how much I shall pay, I will say, I know that that G star will be provided. Everyone will consume. It's non-rival, non-excludable. So why should I pay anything at all? I said, no, 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 I don't need any free education. I don't want to study at all. I will not pay anything. That's a free riding, no? Unlike private goods, public goods is a problem. The problem of free riding. And that is why the Lindell says it's from a different perspective. You have to pay this tax price. Now tell me, what is the quantity you want for that price? Now here also the problem of being untruthful is possible. Take for example, let's think of this individual too. He knows that if I pay P2, my optimal government, the optimal government expenditure on public good that I want is G star, right? I know that. No one else knows that. What if I say anything more than G star? Who stops me? I'm paying something, I have to pay P2. Had it been a private good, I would have demanded G star. But I know the government does not know my demand curve, cannot see my demand curve. The government just told me you have to give P2, just tell me what will be your optimal G. I might say infinite. Because otherwise, as you pointed out, the government says G star is being provided. How much you should give? What is the price you are ready to give? What is the maximum you want to give? He will say zero. I don't need that good. So that truthful revelation is absent. And that is the problem. That's the corner. That's the basically cornerstone of the entire problematic. That's the actual problem. Now, what Lindell says is fine. I am equating the marginal benefits. So every individual is equating marginal benefit to that government expenditure through tax price. At that equilibrium, I am equating the sum of the marginal benefits with the marginal cost. So it is Pareto efficient. But the problem is, who guarantees that G star is the same unanimous amount of expenditure which will be demanded by the two different individuals? And the problem is, or the criticism of the Lindell equilibrium is, individuals does not have any incentive to truthfully reveal their preference. They will always try to free ride. So how this equilibrium concept of yours is taking care of that actual problem? It is not. So take for example, I'm just skipping this part, and this is the problem I gave all of you in the last exam, and I'm just putting it back here. So if you have a particular functional form like this, what would be the optimal? Pareto optimal. That was the question I asked. But if this is the same model, you ask someone what is the Lindell equilibrium, Lindell will say what? I can see for every individual, I will just focus on this VI of X part. I will only talk about this VI part, which is the margin, the utility function related to X amount of public good provided. So for every individual, I'll get a VI prime of X. I will just sum it up and put it into 1. Why 1? Because the marginal rate of substitution is 1. That was exactly the problem. And this is the source of MRT equal to 1. Right? So most of you gave it the correct answer. But there is one more thing. There's a feasibility part also. Suppose the economy starts with an endowment of private goods by all the individuals, omega I. So that sum omega I over summing over I running from 1 to n individuals, the right hand side of this equation, gives the total resource available in the economy. And these people also consume yi of private good. So the total consumption of private good is summation yi. And public good is 1 x, which will be consumed by everyone. So you need to have a feasibility condition like this. So this too will give you a Lindell equilibrium, of which the second part is the efficiency part. That's exactly the Samuelson condition, the Samuelson criteria, right? But it does not tell you one thing, that why should an individual I reveal Vi prime x or Vi of x. Yi is self-revealing. That's a private good. But why? How come the Lindell equilibrium takes care of the fact that everyone tries to truthfully reveal Vi prime x? It's not a problem. That's a problem. So it was rearranged a little bit. And this part is called the Wicksell-Lindell tax system. The Wicksell-Lindell tax system builds on the Lindell equilibrium concept. And it says that there is a government who decides on the output X such that it is Pareto optimal, and it should link everyone's tax payment to the benefit. It's very simple. What will be the individual I's budget constraint? Utility function I know. Ui is equal to Vi of x plus yi. But the budget constraint changes now. What is the budget constraint? I remember price of the private good and public good are both are 1. So yi is my expenditure on private good. Ti is the total tax payment I give to the government. Omega I is my endowment. Right? So this should be my. And now, what is my tax share? My tax share is, suppose summation Ti, capital Ti, is the total tax collection of the government or total tax revenue of the government. So capital Ti divided by summation capital Ti. That's my tax share. Let's call that small ti. Now what is tax share? Now what I have done, I have somehow brought back this in the form. The Ti, small ti, if I sum it over across all, that should be 1. I am summing the shares of everyone. Total quantity of public good that will be produced what? Tax share into X should be my total tax. Now look, my utility maximization problems is redefined. Or you can rewrite this constraint maximization or constraint optimization in this way. Is it clear how to rewrite from here to here? I am replacing yi from the constraint part. Now, when you do that, You just do one simple thing. For everyone, what will become the first order condition? Vi prime, because what is the X that you choose that optimizes here? Look, I have removed the private good from this optimization process using the budget constraint. So my maximization problem is what? Vi of X plus, instead of Yi, I have what I have written? Omega I minus Ti dot X. Rewritten here. I have only now one choice of X. First order condition, Vi prime minus Ti equal to 0, or this. Now look, efficiency, Pareto efficiency is already being taken care of. Why? From here, if I can link marginal benefit to my tax share, so tax share total is equal to 1, which means summation Vi prime of X is equal to 1. So Samuelson criteria is met. So it's Pareto efficient. So I have maintained Pareto efficiency. But this Vi prime equal to tax share coming from individual's utility optimization problem. Now, higher, as you can see, what will happen? All for everything what you have. What is Vi prime? The first difference of a marginal utility. And you do have diminishing marginal utility. So higher the tax share, lower will be the optimal X, which is X hat written here. It's exactly analogous to law of demand. The more price you have to pay, the lower will be your demand. Right? So if you have n number of people, then you might have n different optimal levels of X. That's exactly the Lindell problem. How come you come to a consensus on X? Because to provide a public good, you have to have a consensus, because that's the same amount which will be provided to everyone. But if for everyone this is different, because Vi is different for everyone, omega I does not come to the picture in the first order condition, because this will be my FOC. So now, how come you can think of one X that optimizes the objective function, maybe the reduced form objective function of all n people? Very simple. Suppose you start with tax share half. Both pay exactly the uniform. So T1 equal to T2 equal to 1 by 2, which is analogous to T1 equal to T2 equal to dot 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 Tn equal to 1 by n. Right? Constant tax share. But suppose you get, given tax share equal to half, individual ones optimal output demanded is 10, individuals twos is 20. Then you have to play with the price. And what is the price? The tax share. And look, then you have to somehow work out, for a 2 people it's easy. So the tax share becomes 1/3 and 2/3 instead of half. But you get the common unanimous optimal amount of public good X I hat equal to 14. Right? So formally, if I want to say what is a Lindell equilibrium, it's basically the tax share such that this optimization utility maximization happens for each and everyone for a particular common exact. So there is one unique exact that optimizes all individuals utility. And in doing so, what you do? You maintain summation vi prime equal to the tax share. So my marginal benefit is equated to my tax share. So what I pay is exactly connected to what I get. Okay. Now, and this is exactly what I said. It is the para efficiency part is taken care of. But there is a problem. There are now different problems. That's it. The equilibrium might not exist at all. So this is a very simple uh, utility functions given for two individuals. The V part, only the utility from public good. So V1 of X and V2 of X. Two functional forms are given. And you can check that the summation Vi prime is not equal to 1. So the Samuelson condition does not. So the equilibrium in that sense does not. You can exclude someone. This is again completely against the idea of public good provision. If you do not pay tax share, you do not get any. So by assigning tax share, we are trying to bring in excludability. Third, everyone takes their tax shares as given. So everyone behaves competitively. Remember, we said that the Lindell equilibrium is based completely on the first welfare theorem. What was the first welfare theorem? If there is perfect competition in all the markets, it will reach to Pareto optimality. What is the market here? Market for private goods, which I'm saying, let's assume that's perfectly competitive. But the public good also, everyone is thinking the tax shares are given by the government. I have to pay that. So in view, you're trying to equate it to a marginal benefit, but the individuals, while optimizing their function, they take tax share as given as the price of the private good. But it should have been endogenized from Vi prime equal to Ti. So instead of subject to the constraint as Yi plus Ti x equal to omega I, one should have written Yi plus Vi prime of x dot x equal to omega I. Now you do not come anywhere. So there is a fundamental problem there. I am saying that you pay what you get. But when I'm talking about the optimization function, I'm saying Ti is given. So there is a problem in corroboration there. Conceptually. Mathematically, there is no problem. Because at equilibrium, both will get matched. And the problem of incentive. If I give you the Ti, T2, Tn as given, who told the government that the Vi function, which the individual uses to optimize, is a true Vi? So we'll stop here today, and tomorrow what we'll do, we will find that as usual, it's a problem of revealing my true demand. That problem is not solved. So what we'll do tomorrow is what we'll say the demand revealing tactic. Okay, how to solve for that truthful revelation of my preference for public. This will be tomorrow. Okay then. So I will stop here today. If you have any observations, please go ahead. Let me stop the recording.